We're here with the Transportation Advisory Commission for August 27th. We'll call the meeting adjourned at 5:34. Well,
I had a drink before I got here.
Me too. Call to order.
yeah. Roll call.
Rice. Here. McCullough.
Here.
Streitberger.
Here.
Crouch.
Yes.
Case.
Here.
Ramirez.
Here.
All right. I don't have the meeting. Oh, there they are. Okay. I've already looked over them, but approval. There we go. Chuck moves.
No, for the minutes, I'll move to approve.
I'll second.
Okay. A motion and a second. All in favor to approve the minutes of the last meeting, say aye. Any opposed? Nay? No? All right, meeting minutes approved. Go to scheduled business number 4, Captain Buck Pierce with APD.
Hi,
Hey.
I'm Buck Pierce. I work for the Albany Police Department. Andrew invited me here to discuss some of our roles in investigating crashes and reporting crash data. Maybe even discussing future plans for maybe traffic changes that you guys would like to see or the community. And basically open up a way to communicate with the police department, starting here with maybe answering some questions and I guess I could start with letting you know that the police department collects data and in the way of reports and also investigations on how crashes occur and whether it was speed involved or some sort of equipment involved or just a bad intersection with bad signage or traffic congestion problems that we see now today that we didn't see 20 years ago when it first started. All those different types of things. So it's something where I can bring the committee data if I have advance notice of quarterly or annually reporting data. Whatever you would like to see, I can try to collect some of that data and present it to you on a regular basis, whatever that looks like, if that's something that you wish. But Andrew just wanted me to come and maybe answer some questions that you may have of the police department. So
part of my reasoning there is when we now that Ron is retired, I'm getting a lot of the emails and calls. You have seen some of that stuff where we get requests for changes to intersections and then speed zone stuff. And one of the first things I point them at is also the police department has a trailer that they put that citizens can request to be put out. And so when I was looking through some stuff, I said, we really should interface with them a little bit on both. We're dealing with both sides of that, some of the traffic stuff and the speed zone stuff.
I think a good example of that would be the area of Waverly and Columbus, where it has that S-turn there by the Mennonite Village, where the city reduced the speed limit there. It used to be 40, now it's 35 through that little area. We've known for a long time that speeding is a problem through there. And so I think we can work together to make a safer, or at least try to come up with solutions that we may have.
Yeah, that was kind of frustrating for us as a commission, I think, making that change because ODOT gave us like 2 choices, right?
Yeah.
And we really wanted a blend of the two, but it wasn't an option. Chuck?
We have to follow respect. tell us a little about our police department, sworn officers, volunteers, training, what's going on with our police?
Well, I'll start with the volunteers because that's the least number. We currently have 3 volunteers. They help with all sorts of things, with abandoned vehicles or graffiti removal, to our community events and things like that. All in all, the police department has 100, maybe 101 employees, depending on what's happening. Most of them are sworn officers. We have 67 sworn officers. So those are individuals that have police powers. So that's your detectives and your administrators, school resource officers, and patrol officers. We have a records division that has several professional staff in it, and dispatch. We also have dispatchers and call takers. So when you call 911, it first goes to the county, and then they see that it's an Albany resident or the call is coming from Albany. So then they transfer it to us, our police department, and handle it that way. And then we have property and evidence specialists who handle all of the intake. And so that's thousands of pieces of property that we seize off the street, and they're accountable for all of that. So that's our department in a nutshell. Right now, since our population is almost 60,000, give or take, for Albany, 67 sworn officers is not a lot per capita. It's about 1.1, less than that. So nationwide, that's pretty low number. But we do what we can and try to not only increase our staffing levels to maintain or try to keep up with our population growth and the amount of people that come into Albany and spend time here.
How many unfilled positions today?
Right now we have 2 that we're trying to overhire for. The council has approved us to put out a future of like, hey, we know this person is retiring on September 1st, so we should probably hire for that person before September 1st, because as you may or may not know, there's so much training and certification involved from when we hire somebody to be a police officer to when they're actually on their own doing police work. It's about a year. And so we've been trying to overhire. So we have those 2 positions that we're trying to overhire for now. We currently have 6 people in training. And so the officers on the street right now are feeling like they're understaffed. We have a lot of overtime going out because we have the positions filled, but they're not solo officers. And so it's a good place to be that we have hired people, but we're just trying to get them staffed up. Yeah, exactly. And so, that's where we're at right now.
How many vacation days do you get? Does the officer get 3 weeks a year after the first year, or is it 2 weeks? Or what?
There's a lot of different leave for officers. There's holiday leave and vacation leave. But most officers, their leave accruals increase. And right now is a good example where officers are unable to take leave because of minimum staffing requirements. And so their leave is denied, and unfortunately, but they can put in leave a year in advance, and so that helps. But our staffing is simply, there's 9 officers per patrol team, and 7 is the minimum staffing. So 2 people can be off at a time. And so that's a juggling maneuver.
That hasn't changed in decades.
No, it hasn't stayed. When I was hired in 2004, that was the same minimum staffing and same patrol team.
How many days of training roughly a year are there, which takes you out of the field, right, or off your job?
Yeah, we have several in-service days. Basically, once a month, there's a training in-service day.
Oh,
So
no weeks.
No, but some training is weeks or a week long or something like that. So it's an adjustment. But yeah.
Thank you.
Tim, Chris, could you give us some background on yourself and then your role with APD, and how you see that the Transportation Commission can benefit, especially you, maybe if it's going to be possibly a you being the liaison back and forth, how can we help one another to make the community more safer, especially with traffic incidents and that type of stuff?
Yes, I'd be happy to. So like I mentioned, I started in 2004 with the City of Albany. That was my first police job, fresh out of college. And then as all officers, they start on the road, which I did. And then in 2007, I became a traffic officer. And there was two of us that were working traffic at the time. And so we rotated schedules where we did DUI enforcement and then daytime traffic enforcement, like speeding and seatbelts and cell phone use and things. And then in 2011, I rotated out of the traffic position and then went into detectives, where I investigated crimes against children. And I was a detective in that role for a little over 4 years. And then in 2017, I promoted to patrol sergeant. So I went out of detectives back to the patrol and ran a patrol team. I did that until 2020, when I went back into detectives as a detective sergeant. And then from there in 2021, I was promoted to lieutenant and was the investigations lieutenant. So in that role, I not only supervised the detective unit, but I also supervised our community resource unit. And that houses our traffic officers, our school resource officers, our volunteers, our CSOs, all in that area. And our victims advocate is in there too. And then just this last July, I promoted, or I did a little bit of time in patrol this year to kind of backfill. And long story short, I was a patrol lieutenant from March to July this year. And then July, I promoted to patrol captain. And that's where I'm at right now. And so as a patrol captain, there's two captains in our police department. One is over operations, which is me. And then there's support services captain, which is Captain Jerry Drum. I don't know if you know him or not. So he is the division commander for CRU, detectives, records, property and evidence dispatch. And I just have the patrol division. And so in that, most encounters people have with police is going to be with our uniform patrol staff, which is my division. And then the little caveat is the traffic officers being under the support division side is, those, we now have two officers out. We have one right now, but we're getting another one here in the near future. That's going to be a DUI car. And so they'll be working nights mostly. And then certainly our other contact with our kids and our school resource officers, right? So all of those three areas with our patrol, traffic officers, and our school resource officers all have a direct impact on traffic safety because as I have two kids, one is 15, I got one to the age of 20, but I'm both out to drive, and it's the scariest thing to sit in a passenger car with a new driver. And so it's important to include our schools in traffic safety and our school zones. And the reality is we're not able to be everywhere at the same time and in different neighborhoods or different congested areas in the city. And so that's why we have been using our Red Flex photo enforcement since 2008. I was part of that implementation at Queen and Gary. We're expanding that currently. It's not up and running yet, but we identified kind of 4 areas throughout the city that we can place those photo enforcement cameras. And that is simply a deterrent to get people to slow down, obey traffic laws in those areas. And so 2 of them are in school zones. One of them is nearby a school zone at St. Anne and Gary. And then we're going to keep the existing one at Queen and Gary, which is also near several schools, where that's a main hub for students to be traveling from South Albany High School and even West Albany. So it's a big intersection area. So there's a lot of things that we can continue to do with technology and adding officers and a public education about different traffic laws and trying to work this together. And then also just the engineering part of it, where we have one of the worst intersections in the state of Oregon. We call it the Triangle. You're familiar with it. It's the Pacific Boulevard and Santiam Highway and Gary Street intersection, where there's 4 intersections at all different angles. And so we get crashes there all the time. They're fairly high speed ones because they're both ways are going 35 miles an hour. So you put those things together and we get some injuries out of that. And so just working together on how we can implement engineering to make things safer is really important. And I think that's how we work together is we can report what we're seeing on the street and what other neighborhoods are reporting to us and asking us to, hey, can you come down to 31st and Gary because we have speeding going there all the time. It's 25 in that area, but cars hardly go 25. And so that's an area where maybe we can do some different engineering to slow things down. And then, and so you guys hear recommendations, and so do we. And then we can report, those unfortunate events where traffic crashes occur, which is pretty rare because there's a lot more close calls because we all experience them all the time. Like, oh, that just happened.
Yeah.
And but it wasn't a crash, but it's that same traffic problem. And so, yeah, I just think it's important for us to communicate.
No, I like that. I think you're right. I think because you'll hear from civilians who are, of course, either encountered a crash or unfortunately being stopped or whatever may happen. I think having that communication either once a month or every other month, when you have enough interactions where it's like, okay, hey, here's what I'm hearing. Are you guys hearing anything? And then come in with a different solution. So I appreciate your time and everything that you do. So thank you.
So a couple of things you said. So you do have a traffic team now because APD's always kind of did and then didn't and then has and then hasn't.
Yeah, we've robbed Peter many times to pay Paul, and because our primary function is patrol and handling calls for service. So when we have staffing issues, which we've had and probably will continue to have, is we have to pull people from specialties, and so it's just an unfortunate reality. Right now, we're paying the overtime to cover minimum staffing, but we're keeping our traffic officer on his traffic assignment. And so we're trying to balance that out. It's not easy. And with our next traffic officer, that DUI officer that I mentioned, we're still finalizing that grant reward that we got from ODOT. Ink isn't on the paper yet, but it's really close. And so that position will be funded partially over 4 years. So it's a good way for us to obtain an officer with a little bit of funding from ODOT at the same time of being willing to increase our traffic officers.
Is funding the big limiting factor for recruitment, or?
Not for recruitment. Recruitment being just the general public wanting to be a police officer, I think is a little bit more a complex problem. But funding is a problem for having full-time positions because we have a budget that's every 2 years, and so we only have certain number of full-time employees, and so we have to work within that. And so what I mentioned earlier about overhiring, that's the city council saying we give you permission to go on paper over your budget in order to overhire that position, knowing that it takes a long time to train that person. And so that's our funding constraint on this.
Just because you mentioned you're hiring a DUI officer, what's the trend for DUIs in Albany? Is it like an increasing problem, or is this just a good thing to have?
Well, it's an increasing problem in that it's not the it's not just alcohol anymore. And so with the passage of Measure 110, drugs are more prevalent and increasingly more dangerous. And so the effects of those drugs really impact what DUIs look like. Not that alcohol wasn't dangerous enough, but then you add in poly drugs, it makes it more dangerous. I don't know the number of fatalities. I know it hasn't decreased a lot, and I know it hasn't increased a lot. It's been kind of status quo, but I'm not prepared to have those numbers. But
Just curious.
we arrest more it feels like we arrest more daytime DUIs
Okay.
than we used to. And that's a reflection of drug use. I think it's also a reflection of COVID and all other mental health issues coming out of COVID as well. But that's something that I guess is trending, is being intoxicated during the day.
What about urban growth? Has that increased the amount of traffic issues and collisions? Because I've lived here almost my whole life, and it feels like driving on these roads now is, I don't know if I'm just because I'm getting older, or it's like it's getting really bad. It feels like nowadays. I mean, and I don't know if that's attributed to. You've been in the department a long time. Has it felt like it's gotten worse because Albany's getting bigger?
Yeah, it's just a population factor. And you see that with any city, is their streets that were built and designed in 1990 contained this much population. And I think our population in Albany in the 90s was less than 30,000. And we doubled that. So that's it. We can only turn so many streets into one ways to help alleviate that factor. And so that's kind of what we're so yes, population growth impacts that. At a certain point, our city is going to have to create more business establishments on towards the city limits, to where we can diversify the amount of traffic that comes to a certain intersection. Where, if you want to go to 7-Eleven and you live at South Albany High School, you know which one you're going to. But if there's another 7-Eleven out there by 53rd and Columbus now, so there's that type of idea, and you see that with other cities is having different areas where they can do business. So
Yeah, like I live in West Albany, so I have to travel all the way through town just to get groceries because everything's over there.
I was just rapping to my brother about that.
yeah. And you've seen that with North Albany as a success story for us is the more businesses that go into that North Albany Plaza. It really helps facilitate the amount of traffic on that bridge, and so it's a good testament of how that's working. But there's more to do.
And you said there is a camera going to be going in at Sanium and Gary. That's by Arby's, right? That intersection.
Yes, north of there, not the highway, but the Sanium Road and Gary Street. So north of Petco. North of Jack in the Box.
Oh, that intersection.
That intersection.
Oh, that's okay.
He's the one that's the bus.
That merging area.
That is,
Rough.
it's terrible. It's terrible. In your opinion, what is the biggest like in your 20 years, what is the biggest traffic concern besides DUIs and all that? We know that's a concern. That's you guys. But as a traffic concern with either speed or traffic stops or signals. Yeah. What has become more? Have you seen more just the influx of speeding drivers where we could, as a commission, say, hey, we're seeing, we're getting from APD the numbers that we're getting 10 times more tickets in this area where the speed limit's say 40 or 35. Maybe we need to look into changing that speed there because we've seen a jump from here to here in this amount of time.
Yeah, I'm not an expert in what causes crashes. There's other people that are more intelligent as far as what that actual cause is, because I don't think it's one thing. I believe it's speed and distracted driving. And so when you increase the speed, it's not a steady line of increase in danger. It is exponential. So the faster you go, the more exponential the danger is. And so because the stopping speed or the stopping distance is like 4 times greater the faster you go. So if you are going, for example, 25 miles per hour and your stopping distance is 100 feet, let's make that up. If you're going 50, that stopping distance isn't 200 feet. It's closer to 1,000 feet. And so that's that relation to where speed is. And so if you increase speed just a little bit past 35 miles per hour, your stopping distance is way more than if you're going 20 or 25.
Gotcha.
Now you put a cell phone or a cheeseburger in that person's hand. Their ability to perceive danger and apply brake increases as well. And so you put speed and distracted driving together, and that's the danger. And so that's, I think, together that's the problem.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Is cell phone usage, is that a primary, like can you pull somebody over for seeing them on the phone in Oregon?
Yes, and what he's referring to is a primary reason to stop somebody.
Absolutely.
In Oregon, we have strong laws that allow us to do that. In other states, certain things like seatbelts, for example, is a secondary violation. And so you can't stop someone solely for not wearing their seatbelt. We have to have some other primary reason. And then, so in Oregon, we don't have any secondary violations.
You said earlier, how often do we want to hear from you? If we hear from you physically, like tonight, is this taking you off the street or off your job, or is this part of a supervisor's time?
No, this is just time away from the house. So my captain position, how I like to relate it to people is it's like being a farmer. When the time to bring in hay, you bring in the hay. And once that's done, you're done working. And so that's kind of what it is to be a captain is you just do the work until it's done.
So I'm thinking it would be not just me, quarterly to hear about accidents, arrests, and the reason for those arrests. Could you send us a report quarterly or twice a year? What's best? Without placing a burden on you, what works?
But I would look at it more as like, and I didn't mean to cut, but like a more of a traffic aspect, like I wouldn't, we don't need to know if this dude got arrested because he punched somebody.
No.
I'm just curious, my knowledge base is like, hey, was this person speeding in this area where we've as a commission, we've slowed this down. Are we seeing 27 people getting ticketed or arrested in this area? Then that's another concern. If, just like Chuck said, as long as it doesn't take away from what you need to do, then I would love to see something like that on a traffic aspect.
Yes. So I can report crashes to you on a map. I can report that would be like, hey, this area we have this many crashes. Of those crashes, this many were injured. That's an easy lift. I can report to you the number of factors in that crash for collecting that data. So something like as simple as speed or something like that. So I can report things like that as a general, not this crash would here, because there's quite a few crashes. So it wouldn't be helpful to you to look at each crash and be like, okay. But in general, I could say out of all the crashes in the city, this is kind of the ones that were speed related. This number
That's the stuff I think.
Yes, and so I can have those reports made up. I can deliver them to Andrew or whoever is in charge, and then I can follow up with showing up, and you can ask questions.
Cool.
That's what I don't remember. So I think quarterly. I mean, so it doesn't just take. I hate to see you all patrolling, hanging out here. But if quarterly works with you, I think that would be,
Yeah.
and I'll leave that up to everybody else to get some input there, but I think that would be great.
And I would just add that, I would recommend an APD, person. It won't be me the whole time because you probably get tired of me, but, I can introduce the traffic officer to you, can introduce other people as well and help present information.
Do you think the traffic officer would be?
Yeah, I'm-
Yeah.
Cool.
Would you want him here quarterly or maybe twice a year? I mean, I think the reports are great.
I think the reports would be awesome quarterly. I mean, if the traffic officer had time, it was, sad again, taken away from their duties. Twice a year would be great. I mean, then there could be some follow-up if we have questions.
Yeah, and I would just request to be honest, if we're unable to be here, that would be nice.
Absolutely.
But the reports are easy enough to get them to you. So,
I know some cities have like online maps you can look at. Almost, I don't know. Yeah, I don't know if those are updated once a month or once a year, but does Albany have something like that?
yes, we have weekly updated mapping and then monthly mapping. That's a part of our comp stat that we have been reporting on for years. And then we have
Available to the public? Is it on your website or something?
No.
Oh, okay, so we
No,
would need
that's-
to, okay.
But we do, our annual report is the
Yeah.
most public facing document but that's for the entire department. So there's just a little bit of traffic in there as far as fatal crashes and serious injuries.
So the budget, is it 100% Albany paid, or is 10% state, is 10% federal, is there?
We're paying that.
Well, there was a grant.
Leave it in shot.
Grant.
Sure.
I know, I was like, somebody had to come up with the money situation. It had to be one of you two.
The DUI officer isn't called out.
Yeah,
But
there's a grant.
APD is all out of the jury. Remember they took.
They need a lot of, they,
Fuck, what is this guy blabbering? I ask you.
that's why they have a city
Tithe,
council.
when this is all done, you guys can donate towards the
Yes.
city.
That's why they have to go to city council for everything. Yeah, you gotta go to general, you gotta go to city council.
So if we get them all, well, we could pave all the streets next year.
Who's gonna patrol? Who's gonna patrol them? I don't have any, no.
All right. Is there any other questions for Buck or?
Just because I like to ask everybody who's involved in traffic stuff, if you could sort of wave your hand and change just like any single traffic feature in the city of Albany.
Like if I had a magic wand.
Yeah,
Yes.
that kind of thing, yes.
Traffic feature, the lighted pedestrian crossings are really effective.
So,
We just went through all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, all right.
Yeah.
that's what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Activated
Yeah.
pedestrian cross?
Yeah, so not so much on like 25-mile-an-hour roadways, but 40-mile-an-hour roadways.
Mhm.
That's a fantastic way to do that. I think there needs to be one, not that.
We have a map. Let's talk about it. Yeah,
Most of
like
that
where we
build-up.
like one. We have a map.
But it is possible. Salem has those on ODOT highways, state highways,
Uh-huh.
in the city of Salem, where speeds are 40, 50 mile an hour, and they still have crosswalks.
They do, like on commercial.
Like
yeah.
on Commercial
Yeah.
or Wallace Road.
Mhm.
So anyways, don't give up the good fight on trying to do that. Pacific Boulevard is a nightmare, but those would be good places to have those.
Do you feel like speed bumps are useful for much or not really? Or are they just annoying?
Or traffic calming in general.
I think they have their place. But traffic or maintaining control of your vehicle when you're driving fast and hitting a bump makes it less in control. And so which is prone to more crashes and
Oh, okay.
stuff. So, but I like to tell this story is as a traffic officer, we got a lot of complaints that we try to address in neighborhoods. And so a lot of it was running stop signs, speeding, not stopping for kids or whatever it was. So we would be in the neighborhoods as we do and waiting for something like that to happen so we could educate the public. And more than once, the person that I stopped was the person who had called to complain about. And so, as a general purpose, neighborhoods where you have really skinny streets or speed bumps, those traffic calming features, they're effective. I mean, it slows people down, but it only does so much. It only does so much.
And it doesn't help on the faster roads because you just can't go in there, like Pacific Boulevard.
Yeah, for that reason, right? Speed and losing control of your vehicle. Right?
Buck, I think you and I are lucky to live in Albany because there's no talk about defunding police, or there's less talk about the men in blue, if you will. You get more praise, and most all of us appreciate you and your staff. That's a big deal, what you accomplished.
But I'm just proud of the officers that we do have working for the city of Albany. They do a good job, and we have this mantra of always trying to fill the jar and good things. And so, like the bank, depositing good things into the bank, and then because sometimes we do have to take a withdrawal because we make mistakes, and so we just try to be transparent and honest and fair with people, and really dignity and respect go a long way. And we try to hire those people that give that. So it's one of the things that Chief Harnan has done a fantastic job over the last 4 years that she's been here is understanding that if you take care of your people, those people will take care of the community. And so that's a big deal. And so not that we have all the answers, but we're trying to improve and do better. So thank you for that. I appreciate the positive feedback.
Well, thank you for coming here today.
Well,
Really well hearing you more.
Yeah, no, I've been here since '96, and I tell you, I've had some interactions with APD, and I can tell you the diversity and mutual friendliness and you're treating people with just true honest respect, regardless of the situation, true honest respect. APD has always been good, and I love the chief. The chief's doing fantastic work, and I love to see, I can't wait to see it grow. So I know quite a few officers, and I'm very proud of everything that you do. So thank you for taking your time to come and see us. It's very appreciative.
Thank you. Well, I don't have any cards to hand out, but feel free to give with Andrew, or you can look me up on the web.
I'm sure that's knowledge.
So it's I'm available for any questions, and I'll just look forward to hearing from you of when you want me to come back and what those reports look like, and I can give some samples. And if you're looking for something different, then just let us know, and we'll try to make that happen.
Excellent.
So with that, thank you. Have a good night.
That was cool.
Yeah,
Good idea.
yeah, good pick there.
Great idea.
You did something.
Take my wins where I can get them.
Chuck.
Every month. Sorry.
Item 5, business from the commission, which I don't think there was anything on the agenda. Yes, you have stuff.
I would be under business for staff, which I added, because
You do have something.
because I'm not as fast-footed as
I'll get this down one day.
Ron was. So there's often where I leave with questions that I have to bring back. I would say,
I saw Chuck's hand up. Do you have something, Chuck?
You going to your report, or you just,
I have items.
okay. Before you leave the commission, I have some.
Oh, okay.
this will all surprise you, but I went around you all and called ODOT and said, there was a gentleman at our last meeting that said, I could go out there and paint the intersection at Dead and Ellsworth in about an hour. And you're telling me it's 3 to 5 years. So I called ODOT, our local rep, the reps area 2, I guess. And she forwarded me to someone else. It was amazing. Albany. Is that near Woodburn? Yeah. Anyway, I called ODOT to find out if we, as a commission, could send a letter to our council and say, we're requesting expedited action on 2nd and Ellsworth, the double left turn. They couldn't answer me. Do you have a suggestion? Is there somebody that?
I invited the the area manager next month. So, yeah,
And there's a working plan to make that happen. We've seen it. So we've seen it when we had the joint commission meeting.
right. So we have a project that came out of that study that ODOT put into the arts, which is a grant funding. So that is proceeding through their process.
Sure.
And like you said, it's probably going to be 3 to 5 years.
Yeah.
That would be funded through ODOT, through that program.
The wheels of government turn slowly to protect us, Chuck.
3 to 5 rats, what the squeaky wheel gets the grease.
Absolutely.
And if
true.
This group,
We're going to be squeaky.
that's right. It's our job to find a problem, suggest a solution. It's not for us to find a problem and say, City Council, you got a problem. It's for us to say, City Council, here's the problem, and here's 2 options. We want you to consider these 2 options. I think we have a charge to get involved and not just come to a meeting once a month and listen to me. What?
Well, again, like I told you before, I'm not into the pass and the buck. It makes 0 sense. So
Meeting for the sake of a meeting?
yeah, not gonna happen. So we so just got to come to a couple solutions that we can pose to the council. So I look forward to ODOT being here. It's gonna be fun.
But if I may challenge each of you to think about something to challenge ODOT with or to ask them.
Well, that will be
specific.
Already got a few.
Let's do it. Let's.
We probably shouldn't have anything else on the agenda that day then.
I don't know. No. It's going to open stuff, and I'm a person that wants answers. Not like, I'll see. No,
Yeah, I'll
I
get
can only assume that's going to be it.
Yeah.
I don't know. What do you think?
So you
Just
guys
some
go
old
your night that night, please.
A little hard to judge because we were in a different place, I think, the last time we did this. So, because we had just kind of started out.
correct.
Yeah.
So, business from staff.
So that was one of mine. I've been trying to send out emails when I know there's stuff going to council, or I sent out
Oh,
stuff
yes,
when
I've seen that.
stuff.
Yeah.
So just to loop back on that, I don't know how many of you follow all that. So, but basically, city council at the last meeting, we brought forward, Public Works brought forward the 3 different funding options we've been kind of feeling like we were working towards. That was the fee, the fuel tax, and some bonds. The ordinance for the fee is going back to their next meeting for them to vote on. They directed us to look into the fuel tax and the bond. So, and then I wanted to loop back, and I think Billy is here. He presented last month, as you recall. We had a slight discussion about local streets in that overall discussion, and I just didn't. There were some questions about how local streets fit into that funding, so I didn't want that to just get dropped. I'll let Billy interject here with what he's kind of found out a little bit on. I did want to point out that, because I don't know if I said this last month. So we get some of our funding comes through the feds, through the state, goes to through the MPO, so we apply for projects through the MPO, through their transportation, I'll call it improvement plan. Like we kind of talked last month, that federal funding is generally available for arterials and collectors. And there were some questions, could we use that on local streets? And I don't know that we fully have an answer on that still. But I do want to point out, because I didn't really think of it this way, or I don't think I did last month, is we currently are using that funding on collectors and arterials. So unless that funding increased, if we take that funding and put it on local streets, we're just moving it away from arterials and collectors. So, Bill and I have talked some, and the other thing you got to remember with that whole process is our MPO has other entities in it. So we are to a degree competing projects amongst all of them. So that there's a process, they rank them using a process that they have. And we have reps on all those, but there are other entities involved as well that are also bringing projects forward. So I just wanted to loop back on that. We are doing a little more research to see if there is what options there would be for local streets with that money. But unless that money increased, we would just be taking it away. With the way Albany has been using it, we would be taking it off of projects that we're already funneling towards collectors and arterials, if that makes sense. I just didn't know if I really vocalized that well last month. So,
and are there a lot of projects already being funneled that way? Like for the next several years, like for arterials and collectors?
Well, so yeah, how that funding, so that funding is coming out of the federal gas tax. So when an MPO is set up, part of the funding that you so for in the case of a city like Albany that's completely contained within the MPO, all of that money then goes through that process. Whereas before it used to go through the state directly to Albany. So
did we lose because it goes to the MPO and goes to Tangent?
They increase the funding increases when they set up an MPO. But there's more things to pay for too. Yeah.
More hands in the pot.
Yeah.
That is all paid attention to.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess my point there would be like, as it currently stands, even if that money could be used on local streets, which generally it hasn't been allowed to do that, we would be just taking, if you look at where we said we had a funding gap on arterials and collectors, that was already looking at money we were getting from that.
You'd make that gap bigger.
Could be swapping one problem for another.
Yeah.
Yes.
Robbing Peter for Paul or whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever that reference he said.
So yeah, we will be doing a little more research on the particulars of that. My general understanding, having worked with 2 MPOs for quite a while, is that federal funding is usually not available for local streets.
And you'll get back at another time then.
Yeah, there may be something we where it would be, but even after doing some research, it does not appear like that's super easy to yeah.
And if you were to divert 100,000 from that fund to local streets, is it better to ask forgiveness, or is it, what would happen?
Well, there would be no way with the process the way it is. There's
No way to do it.
You can't even go there.
Yeah, it's we're entering in.
Probably be fraud.
When we get those,
Money
when
in
we
it.
get those projects, we are entering into an
Contract,
agreement.
yeah, it'd be fraud.
We have an agreement that goes through the state for each specific project.
A little bit more
Yeah.
forgiveness there.
Anything else?
Billy has some comments.
Oh, we also have a gentleman back here. I think, are you waiting to talk or address the commission?
Well, I'm sure. I was here thinking you might start talking again about the street repair stuff. But
Okay.
it sounds like you're kind of done with that. It's in the council's.
Oh, I see.
So I don't know what the process. was,
Are you looking
whether
for like an
they-
opinion on what the options?
So that's much anyways, so.
But this was very informational.
Are you here to give an opinion on like one of the options? Is that what you're trying to?
Absolutely.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's, you're better.
I'm very open about it. Should I?
Just so they
Feel free, you can state your opinion anyways if you'd like.
Well, at the appropriate time.
So Billy, did you have anything to add to my comments on that? The MPO funding.
I think you hit most of the points that we had talked about via email. In office, myself and my other MPO cohort were looking through some workarounds, because in bureaucracy, there's always a form you can fill out to make something else happen. There are ways to reclass roads to different federal functional classes. So that's what we're looking at. So we have a broader range of options when the time comes to apply money to more streets.
Do you meet with the city council at all?
I
Only
meet
city
with,
council?
so Ray Kopczynski, Councilor Ray Kopczynski is on my MPO policy board, but the MPO does not meet with the full city council. Not typically anyway.
Is there a lot involved between like renaming a street to a collector or arterial? Is it quite a process?
It's easier to do during the allotted period after the census data is done being processed, but you can still do it off cycle. It just takes a greater level of filing forms.
Oh, paperwork is fun.
Oh yeah. Through paperwork, all things are possible in government.
Sounds like I'm on.
So yeah, Andrew and I will keep exploring options. We do have some time before the next funding cycle occurs. It'll be the 27-2030 funding cycle in a few years. So we'll start looking at projects in 1 to 2 years on that one. So no rush, but we will keep it in the front of mind so we don't lose track of it.
Painted lines tomorrow.
Yeah, definitely
you.
won't happen tomorrow, but we are currently funding projects, and I sent Andrew that list.
Yeah, I can send that. I can email that out.
All right.
I'm sorry, I've got one more thing.
Make it quick, Chuck.
Yeah, I will. Andrew, you did an update the other day and you talked all about cleaning up the mall and stuff like that. I see a fine line between patronizing and bringing us questions that you really would like a decision on. I encourage you to come to us. We don't want to sit here and do nothing. I mean, we can have a meeting in 5 minutes if you didn't bring us some action. So we appreciate it when you do.
But we don't make decisions on things anyways, Chuck. We're the city council. Like, it's
We do.
recommendation,
That's right.
sure,
That's right.
when it's necessary, but you can't expect that every month.
No,
Like, you seem to be angry every time we come here and you don't have a decision to make about something. Well, that's how you come off.
okay, I
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Yeah, just saying.
That's big.
That's how you come off.
Well, all right. Anything else from staff?
I do not have an update, but I do also remember, and I will definitely, at the very least, let you know the path that's moving. So the other thing that is coming up is we should be working on a transportation system plan.
Good.
I thought we were gonna start that along earlier because it's like,
My understanding, very basic understanding of the process is that's being run through ODOT. They're, I think, hiring a consultant to run that project. And there will, at the very least, there is going to be open house type, some sort of meeting like that.
so hopefully we get involved because we were told we are kind of gonna get involved.
Yes, yeah. My hope would be that.
That would be a good one to be a part of.
But either way, I will keep you in the loop with that as that moves along. That's a very important process overall for that when we're talking about a transportation system. Yeah.
All right. Business from the public. Feel free to get up here. They can catch air here.
And if you could. Yeah. Log yourself in so that I have to get back a hold of you.
Can I just put Albany downtown here? All right, and email you want?
If you want to give me a way to contact you,
Sure. I can provide that at some time if it's relevant, but.
Okay. Introduce yourself real quick.
Thank you. So my name is Joe Esker, and I've been a resident of Albany, Monteith area for 5 years now. And so I'm generally interested in what goes on in the city, and so it's been very informative to come here. I didn't even know that there was going to be a meeting tonight. Are you normally a once a month deal? Because I thought that when I saw the minutes from last July, or from the July meeting, it sounded like you were skipping to September or something. Anyway, so I'm just saying I'm ignorant of your process and all that sort of thing. But in reading about the possibilities for the funding of road repair, I'm all in favor of repairing the roads. I would love to see the sidewalks also included in some of that too, but I don't know if that's something that's your jurisdiction for recommending either. It seems so of the three funding mechanisms that were in the paper. So that's where quite a bit of my information comes from. I did attend the meeting with where the council did, where I saw the results of the council postponing the rest of it. So yeah, so I guess all the resolutions did not pass, and so it ended up getting forward until following meeting. And I'm glad that at least the possibility of an addition to the utility tax or the utility charges is so it would essentially, if I'm getting this right, be attached to something like the water, sewer, et cetera. So I've been kind of hanging out and talking with some public works people with regard to water schedules, so the water rates, sewer rates, all that sort of thing. And I recently reviewed some of the master plan and related information with regard to the needs for that are going to be put forward in, or at least in front of the council at some point with regard to facilities that are going to need funding. And I find that right now it's a bit of sticker shock with regard to the current level of water, sewer, stormwater. And if there was something sizable added due for road repair, and within a year, there might be talk about needing to do something with regard to some water facilities development in the city, and however they're going to pay for that. Those are big ticket items. So some capital improvements that sound like they might be in the pipeline too, pardon the pun. And so it seems that this might be a poor timing for putting something onto that utility part of the cost, as we're seeing our taxes go up in general with property taxes, then that on top of it, and then suddenly a big deal comes up with regard to needing to put more water treatment capacity online and that sort of thing. So I just see some train wreck possibilities here with regard to hitting people off of the property tax bit of it with some pretty hefty, oh, you mean once I get that bill every month, I simply have to shell out a few $100s more? So, yeah. So that's how it struck me back then. And because I have been talking with one of the public works engineers and trying to come up to speed on what's going on within their planning for the coming year to 3 years. And it seems like I thought it was going to be last year, and I've been sitting in just about every meeting where I think something's coming up, and it always gets postponed. So things do grind slowly. I know that. One thing that so you have my response with regard to that particular funding mechanism is that I think that could be problematic if there are going to be other things that are dropping in on that utility chunk of money on a monthly basis. I don't know how the gas tax ends up working with regard to a city gas tax and how that relates to what the state collects, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm clueless about those kinds of things. One thing that I have noticed, and I watched this happen, and it really just was jaw-dropping. I was out in my yard and I heard a big calamity down at the end of the block and turned just in time to see a large branch of a median strip tree getting ripped off by a student-driven truck coming around a corner and cutting the corner and taking out a tree. And we see a lot of truck traffic through residential parts of downtown. A lot of truck traffic, and I know that there are student drivers or
Like semi trucks?
truck driving schools
Yeah, I knew that.
are taking people up and down. Certainly downtown streets a lot. We're close to the hospital, so I do see the Cisco truck delivering all the Coke to the hospital, or Pepsi, all the way to the hospital, et cetera. So I know that there's a lot of truck traffic, and as I seem to recall, that kind of traffic destroys streets way quicker than a lot of little cars. And so between the electric vehicle thing with regard to using gasoline and not necessarily and having to come up with an alternative for taxing electric vehicles on the road, and then having all the cars and that gas tax being paid, I would also want to see some consideration of the big vehicles moving around these streets, and that's where the wear and tear will continue to come from. And how do we make up a somewhat fair distribution of the burden across the different types of vehicles that are operating? So that's my piece.
I seem to remember, right, there's no laws or any regulations regulating semi-drivers going through public streets, right? I think I've had this argument before.
Generally, no.
Yeah.
I will point out, not a subject matter expert, but so when you're talking about that type of vehicle in terms of the semi trucks that are commercially being used, setting aside the truck driving school, I have no idea about that at all. They pay a weight mile tax. That is so that to the state that goes in that pot of funding that goes to the entities. So they, if you ask them, they pay more than their fair share in terms of they are paying sort of almost like a registration type fee, right? That is much greater than a car.
The student thing is interesting though, because I've also witnessed on multiple occasions student semi-truck drivers in the sort of downtown corridor. And so I do think that there is a school that is making use of downtown Albany. Yeah.
Yeah. Or at least two.
In regards to your worry about fees,
yeah,
I've been a heavy advocate against it, these city fees that they impose, because I don't think they're fees, but
yeah,
I would highly encourage you to go to a city council meeting and talk and speak. Yeah. Because I know I've bugged my city commissioner, our councilwoman, quite a bit about it, but they need to hear more, because those are things they can implement without a vote. The gas tax has to go through the voters, but the fees don't. And I feel the pain heavily too. So
you,
an artist, I don't make, yeah.
So do you feel like the gas tax is a better option than the fee?
Well, I'm very open about this. I just wanted to mainly say that it sounded from the newspaper article like there was some preference for adding something to the utility.
Because it sideskirts the voters.
Right. Well, but whatever, and I'm not in favor of, I know that it's hard to get the voters to raise.
That's the hard, that's the problem.
Right. And I know that you can also go for bonds, and then that's a different waiting time and all that, and still the streets end up being terrible. And so I recognize that there are shortcomings to all of those options. I want there to be something that does the job at the most reasonable cost that is distributed in a way that seems justifiable and fair across, and that it sounds like the many players, stakeholders have been considered, and that they have been treated fairly around the give and take of that kind of a negotiation. I too am not really a big fan of fees. I wish it was still possible to just say, hey, we collect this much money for government, and then we, through a political democratic system, we divide up how it's going to go, and that used to make a whole lot of sense. And then that all went away after I lived through California and the Prop 13 revolt. And then I saw fee after fee after fee after fee going into just about everything. And it drove me nuts. And I was in state government for many, many years, but not in Oregon.
If you're downtown, your city council reps are Novak and Steph Newton.
Yeah.
Definitely.
And
I
I know
definitely reach out to them and
Yeah, and I know Steph spoke up against voting or moving that part of it along. So I am going to go and talk to her for sure before the next meeting. But I didn't even know when the next meeting was necessarily going to be. And then you guys happened to pop up on the calendar. I said, "Oh, I better go there. It might have something to do with this now."
you get 3 minutes to talk to the city
Oh.
council. So,
Okay.
at the city council, I recommend going down there and speaking to them.
Well, if I
use your
figure
3
out
minutes.
how to do 3 minutes and do it effectively, I'd be happy to do that. But
They are.
I wave my hands a lot. So I don't necessarily take 3 minutes. But anyway, I appreciate the chance to sit at the table with you.
You're good. Any questions for, you were
Joe? Yeah,
Thank you for your input.
okay. Thank you for listening.
We are 15 minutes past our time.
See?
If there isn't anything else, we will adjourn the meeting at 6, was that 42?
42.